I thought, since there's not as many persons here, we can sneak in a discussion of Lord Chaitanya and his presenting of Radha Krishna Lila, Krishna Gita. We'll sneak it in. But we're going to approach that subject matter. We shall attempt to approach that subject matter from the lotus feet of the parampara and begin by discussing where we left off with Rupa and Sanatan Swami being accepted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because as we all know, without the mercy of the devotee, there's no question of Krishna's mercy. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
We'll read a verse from Lila, chapter 13. The Lord's dancing at Radhanath. We'll start off from there, and we may end there before we explore Rupa Goswami's, Sanatan Goswami's meeting with Lord Chaitanya at Nagari, because that's all about mercy, and we certainly need that. This is text 147. Tumi Vajra Jivam, Vajra Vajra Param Dhana, Tumi Vajra Sakala Sambhat, Vipada Tomara Mana, Asi Jayo Vajradana, Vraja Udaya Kala Nijapada. Tumi, you, Vajra Jivan, the life and soul of Vrindavan, Vrajarajera, and of the king of Vraja, Nanda Maharaj, Radhanath, the only life, to me, you, Vrajera, Vrindavan, Sakala Sambhat, all opulence, Kripa Ardha, melting with kindness, Tomara Mona, your mind, Asi, coming, Jyaro, giving life, Vrajajana, to all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Vraje, in Vrindavan, Udoy Korao, cause to appear. Nijapada, your lotus feet. Translation. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking in the mood and with the emotions of Srimati Radharani while dancing at Radhanath. My dear Krishna, you are the life and soul of Vrindavan Dham. You are especially the life of Nanda Maharaj. You are the only opulence in the land of Vrindavan, and you are very merciful. Please come and let them all live. Kindly keep your lotus feet again in Vrindavan. Purport. Srimati Radharani did not express her personal unhappiness at being separated from Krishna. She wanted to evoke Krishna's feelings for the condition of all others in Vrindavan Dham. Mother Yashoda, Maharaj Nanda, the cowherd boys, the gopis, the birds and bees on the banks of Yamuna, the water of the Yamuna, the trees, forests, and all other paraphernalia associated with Krishna before he left Vrindavan for Mathura. These feelings of Srimati Radharani were manifested by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore he invited Lord Jagannath, Krishna, to return to Vrindavan. That is the purport of the Rath Yatra cars going from Jagannath Puri to the Gundicha temple. Om again to another step. Yananjana Shalakara. Chakshurudrina Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvena. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Namaste Siya Govitakara. Sivasati Gaura Govinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya was on his way to Vrindavan, and as we discussed Friday afternoon, he found himself in Radhanath. Why did he find himself there instead of going to Vrindavan? He'll reveal later that although no one can understand his intentions, he went there just to meet the two brothers, Devamrita and Sakara. We spoke Friday about material qualifications. So many of you here have such qualifications. We spoke Friday about how Rupa and Sanatan, although occupying the topmost government posts, they actually ran the whole kingdom on behalf of the Muslim emperor. Nevertheless, they regarded their qualifications as nothing. This is how strong their bhakti is. They considered themselves the most fallen because they had accepted the employment of the Mohammedan regime. They considered that they were practically meat eaters because they were associating with meat eaters. We can learn so much from their standard of self-appraisal. It is one of the symptoms of the age of Kali that even in our decrepit, degenerate condition, we find something about ourselves to be proud. Well, there may be so many things wrong with me, but there's one thing I really do good. Everyone should know it. And actually, when I look around and see others, I realize I'm not so bad. I'm not the most pious person, I'm not the most devoted devotee, but I'm not the worst. So that way we give ourselves a sense of confidence in the wrong way. So this seeking value in oneself amidst the darkest age of Kali, is it's a benediction of Maya. And Rupa and Sanatan Swami show us so powerfully how to have real self-esteem, how to have real self-confidence, how to have real ego. They disregarded all their material expertise, considering it to be nothing but a straw in the street, and they begged for the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later, Sanatan Goswami, upon meeting Lord Chaitanya again after Ramkeli, will say, "People call me such a great scholar, and I'm such a fool I believe them." But how can that be? How can I be a great scholar when I don't know who I am, why I'm in this world, why I'm suffering? Just try to walk in those footsteps. People call me a great this or that. People think I'm a successful executive or a successful family man. I'm just a fool, I believe. This is the example set by Rupa and Sanatan. They approached Lord Chaitanya and clarify their position. This is a very important thing to understand. You're clear about yourself. You see yourself properly. You have some realization of where you're at. And you don't cloud that realization with affirmations of how good you are, in spite of how bad you are. Now, mundane psychologists would say, why should you meditate on how bad you are? That is very debilitating for the self-esteem. The past 100 years have been a time of striking up the band and glorifying self-esteem. It's like a concept that has taken the whole Western world by storm. How's your self-esteem? Do you believe in yourself? Do you understand your true glories? Even in sports, for example, it used to be that athletes would always praise the team for their success, or always, downgrade themselves. I don't know. Somehow I was in the right place at the right time. Now they're told, don't do that. Now they just fully enhance their egos. I amaze myself sometimes. I guess people should start to understand I am a real major player. I am worthy of more respect. So the sports psychologists tell them that that's how they should be in order to be more productive. And that same mentality is there in the business world, in the professional world. You've got to present yourself. You can't just be meek. In the Christian Bible is a verse that attributed to Jesus. The meek shall inherit the earth. What do you think about that? The meek shall inherit the earth. There's an age of Kali answer to that, of course. Yes, the meek shall inherit the earth. They'll be buried 10 feet under. How are you doing in your quest for power? Now you might say, power? I'm not on a power trip. I'm just an ordinary person trying to cope with this world. But living in the material world without pure Krishna consciousness means in some way you're trying to extend your power, expand your power. You may call it just carving out a niche for yourself. Just trying to create a zone of safety for yourself. But this is actually, from the technical point of view, from Bhagavad Dharma, this is extending your power range, your power scope. And then what do? We realize that everyone in the world is trying to extend their power scope. So I've got to form alliances with those who are favorable to me. And that way together we'll protect one another's power range and we'll push back those who are unfavorable to our power vicinity. So what looks innocent actually is an attempt to enjoy and exploit the material world. And there's nothing innocuous, there's nothing harmless, there's nothing innocent about that desire to enjoy and control the material world. Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, in their approaching Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they clarify these issues so dramatically. As everyone knows, they were highly educated, highly materially expert, yet they regarded themselves as worse than Jagai and Madai. They knew how to document their case. They said to Lord Chaitanya, why are we lower than Jagai and Madai? They were addicted to sinful activities. Okay, that's all. I didn't think of it modest there. But they never associated with non-devotees the way we did. Moreover, just by chanting the names of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, they became purified. But us, we are sold out 100% to mundane association. We have accepted the employment of meat eaters. We are them. We have become them. Therefore, we have such an unparalleled basis to claim your mercy. They used all their skills, all their shakti to beg for the mercy, to establish to Lord Chaitanya that if you don't save us, you won't find anyone worse. And they reminded Lord Chaitanya of his portfolio. You are Patita Pavana, remember? Patita Pavana means deliverer of the most fallen. Well, here we are. Here is your chance to fulfill your designation. It's determination. You see how begging Lord Chaitanya for his mercy brings out the best in you. It's not like materialistic, the spiritual people grovel before their God, and this way they become spineless, and they don't have the determination to do anything in this world. Often in Australia, when I'm speaking to retreats full of overseas students from India and recent graduates who have taken up professional roles, I have to unearth a fear that's lurking underneath. That if I get too much into bhakti, my competitiveness at the workplace will be threatened. My drive to achieve at the university will be damaged if I associate with devotees too much. You know that verse in Bhagavad Gita, you've all seen it, where Krishna warns you about too much Krishna? Have you seen that verse? Too much bhakti? You read that verse? So this is a deep underlying fear that if I become too spiritual, I'll lose sight of the material world. I'll become the meat that inherit the earth, 10 feet under. Maybe you have seen a popular bumper sticker. Nice girls finish last. So your urge today, how to swim with the sharks. That's the sign of expertise and ability. But we see that Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, their brilliance was entirely focused on getting Lord Chaitanya's mercy, convincing him, you won't find anyone worse than us. And they offered inducement to Lord Chaitanya. They offered incentive to him. If you save us, your reputation will be glorified in the help of the world. You're Patita Pavana. So here we are, the worst. By saving us, your true glories become known to everyone. This is how expert they were. How could Lord Chaitanya refuse such an approach? They told him, you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone worse than us. No, don't waste your time. You get bombed with us. We're going to save you trouble by coming before you and fulfilling your title as Patita Pavana. They expressed that we are ashamed to speak of our sinful activities. Generally, we're very quick to want to present our glories. Well, actually, did you know that I did this? And did you know that my brother did that? And did you know that, we're always trying to squeeze out some glory for ourselves. But when we look at Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami in their first approach to Lord Chaitanya, we see what is the real standard of devotion. Now, we spoke Friday about how Rupa and Sanatan, as Devamrita and Sakramali, had to maneuver in order to go see Lord Chaitanya. They discussed it back and forth, the pros and cons. Should they make this trip to see Lord Chaitanya? And so finally, in the middle of the night, they went to see Lord Chaitanya incognito. So they were clever. But they're using all their intelligence how to get the bhakti is not something foolishly sentimental. It absorbs our greatest faculties, our greatest abilities, not in material achievement, but in trying to please Lord Chaitanya. This is the example that Rupa and Sanatan set for us. And they were able to analyze Lord Chaitanya's situation as a service to him. They told Lord Chaitanya, it may seem peaceful around here, but we cannot trust the mind of the Mohammedan ruler. That mind can change any moment. First he says that you're a prophet and you're no danger, and he tells his assistants to leave you alone. Meanwhile, some of his assistants are plotting against you because they're jealous of your influence. Remember, we spoke Friday about Kesava Chakri, who's a devotee of Lord Chaitanya, working in the government. And when the Mohammedan king asked Kesava Chakri, what do you think about this, Chaitanya? Kesava Chakri, very diplomatic, said, oh, he's very insignificant. He only has a few followers. Don't bother with him, it's not worth the effort. And remember Rupa Goswami, when the king asked Rupa Goswami about changing Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami said, you are the king, the representative of God. What appears in your mind, that's what he is. So what appears in your mind? And the king said, he's the supreme personality of God. Rupa Goswami said, yes, so be it. We discussed Friday how the king could come to such a conclusion. And we can understand that it was by the association of Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami put out his best by Rupa Goswami's association. Ask your mind. You are the monarch. Ideally, you're supposed to be representing the Supreme Personality of God. Ask your mind who he is. Then later, the same Rupa Goswami tells Lord Chaitanya, better leave here, you can't trust him. You can't trust his mind. Just see how expert Vaishnavas are. A sharp contrast to our thinking or our fear that if I become too Krishna conscious, I'll lose track of the material world. It's often a question I get at outreach programs. People have this conception that when you chant Hare Krishna and you get into bhakti, you just become disorientated and kind of caught up in some kind of cloud, and you just lose track of what's going on around you, and you live in a kind of spiritual la-la land. The common question. And then how will the affairs of the material world go on? No, indirectly they're accusing you of being escapist. By fingering your beads, you're neglecting the world around you and your responsibilities around you. I can understand their feeling that way. When I first saw devotees it was on, I don't know, the first time I saw devotees, but the first time I really thought about them. They were on television. It was my last month at the university, and I've explained this before, how my roommate and I, we were studying hard for our finals. We were about to graduate. And so we turned on the television to get some relief. But, as I often explain, we couldn't watch television the ordinary way because, after all, we were the top students. So we had to demonstrate our clear distinction from the ordinary masses of students by watching television with the volume turned all the way down. And then we could speculate on what was happening. This way show our prowess. So, all of a sudden we saw these strange-looking persons on the screen. I remember telling her, turn the volume up. I can't figure out who these people are. So we turned the volume up, and we heard what they had to say. They were presenting themselves, and they were talking about their lifestyle, the rules they follow, so on and so forth, and how to get the highest this, they kept using the word ananda. I remember that. So my reaction was, I turned to my roommate and said, these people are fools. They have missed the goal of life. They talk about ananda, I had learned that word. They talk about ananda, we'll invite them to one of our parties, we'll show you what ananda is. And my other reaction was, what are they doing for the world? They're jumping up and down saying it's Hare Krishna. What is that doing? Helping the world's problems. As if I was doing something. What are they doing? What are they doing with their energies? How are they caring for the world? What's their plan to liberate the oppressed people of the world? What's their plan for economic justice, social justice? Forget it. So that was a fear I had. And it's a common fear that there's so many problems in the world today. How is chanting Hare Krishna? How is the Bhakti lifestyle going to deal with that? Okay, it's good that you have your own happiness. All glories to your own happiness. What about the world? Rupa and Sanatan Swami had a special type of humility called Dainya. And Sanatan Swami in Devamrita explains this Dainya. It is a much deeper conception of humility than the English word allows. Dainya means that you present yourself genuinely as having no abilities. Meanwhile, everyone else can see you're very expert. So Dainya doesn't mean, according to Sanatan Swami, that you're just incompetent and inattentive to your being in this world and your service to Krishna, and then you can justify that by saying, Prabhu's, no, sorry I spaced out the service. I'm very fallen, you know that. Sorry I didn't show up for the service because actually, conditioned soul, That's not Dainya. Dainya means that you thoroughly, 100%, see yourself as being of no ability and being useless. Meanwhile, all the other Vaishnavas see you're very expert. That is Dainya, according to Sanatan Swami. So these conceptions are very deep, and they're far beyond a shallow understanding. So, Lord Chaitanya said to Rupa and Sanatan at Ram Keli, you've written me, we corresponded, I've studied your letters, and I understand your heart. Through your letters, I studied your heart. And he said, he reminded them, I sent you an instruction based on the situation of your heart. And in that instruction I said, think of a woman who has a paramour. She always does all her duties, all her responsibilities so expertly so that the husband won't suspect she has a paramour. So he gave that very ingenious instruction to Rupa and Sanatan. While you're carrying on your affairs in the material world, always remember in your heart of hearts who is your Lord and Master. You are the servants of Radha and Krishna. And then Lord Chaitanya expressed to him, please stop your expression of humility. It's breaking my heart. Just think of the depth of the humility they were showing, that Sri Mahaprabhu had to beg them, stop it, my heart's breaking. What kind of humility is that? We can only pray that one day we'll taste a drop of that kind of humility from that ocean of humility. An ocean so great that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as his own devotee, said, stop, please stop, it's breaking my heart. When Rupa and Sanatan first approached Lord Chaitanya, they were overwhelmed with joy and at the same time crying out of humility. is the world of bhakti bhava, the emotions of the devotee. Like, how can you be overwhelmed with joy and crying and saying, I will humility? Material life doesn't allow you that full range of emotional expression. We get so swept away by the fragments of emotional experience that material life allows. Very limited bandwidth of expressions of joy and sorrow. But when we reach Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the world of bhakti emotions opens up to us. We begin to get a glimpse of the expanse of bhakti bhava, the emotions, the emotional dynamics of a devotee. So as you know, Lord Chaitanya described that Rupa and Sanatan were his old servants. They were his eternal servants, you know. And he changed their names from Devamrita to Sakramali to Rupa and Sanatan. And then he asked all the Vaishnavas present, please give them your mercy. And all the Vaishnavas were eagerly bestowing their mercy as Rupa and Sanatan touched their feet. The Vaishnavas were not thinking, oh, they're favored by Lord Chaitanya now. That means less mercy for us. This is material consciousness. When I, as a newcomer to Bhakti, first started reading Srimad Bhagavatam and the Krishna book, I was thinking, this is so wonderful, the spiritual world, Vrindavan, Vaikuntha. I better hurry up and go there, because if I don't, soon it's going to be overcrowded. Everyone's going to want to go there. I guess living in Manhattan, I had that conception. I better hurry up and go there. It's going to be overcrowded soon. Like a packed subway train in New York. I got to squeeze your way in first. The Vaishnava associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they had no material inclinations or perceptions. They knew the more mercy that's given out, the more the supply of mercy increases. They knew that as reality, not as a theory. They eagerly gave their blessings to Rupa and Sanatan. Sometimes, you may recall, Lord Chaitanya would test his devotees, how they reacted to glorification of another devotee. Lord Chaitanya, on one occasion, began to speak of the glories of Haridas Thakur as if he had 5 mouths. This is life on the spiritual platform. We want to learn how to adequately glorify devotees with just one mouth. But Lord Chaitanya, as Supreme Personality Godhead, sets the pace. He began speaking about Haridas Thakur as if he had 5 mouths all glorifying Haridas Thakur at once. And he was testing the other devotees. You see what I'm doing? Glorifying Haridas like I have 5 mouths? How do you feel about it? Of course, Lord Chaitanya's devotees are beyond any envy or jealousy. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing how to be a devotee. He spoke yesterday evening about compassion, about how just as bhakti is always expanding without limits, similarly our compassion should expand. You can remember when you were a little child, you certainly, if you had good parents, you loved your parents. But as you became older, your horizon of affection expanded. You began to appreciate your relatives, your neighbors. You liked your nation, you would appreciate your nation. And maybe even as you became older, it expanded to all of humanity. So we should not be content with just a certain scope of our compassion. Compassion and love are very intimately related. Someone who has a loving heart shows that through compassion. Sometimes it's said that how can Krishna create such a world and let us be in it? He's God. Why does he just take us all back to God? Why do we have to undergo material existence? Now, first of all, if you want to get deep into this issue, actually Krishna doesn't create the material world. What creates the material world? Your deviant desires. And Krishna regretfully fulfills your deviant desires. So therefore the Bhagavatam explains that actually Krishna's not the creator. He's just facilitating your desires. It's your desire that creates the material world. So then you say, all right, it's my desire that created this material world, but why does Krishna let me stay in it? But just see, Krishna comes as his own devotee to teach us how to be a devotee. And Lord Chaitanya's demonstration of how to be a devotee, he drowns the whole universe in love of Krishna. It's there for us to access, and we can only blame ourselves. The Panchatattva, the more they dance, the more the flood of love of Krishna increases. So what's going on? So the real question is how we exempt ourselves from this flood of mercy. And that takes some introspection and self-analysis. And weekends like this are a good time to take stock of ourselves and see how we are impeding our own progress. We can take stock of ourselves at a weekend like this and see, how can I increase my love? How can I increase my compassion? How am I standing in my own way? And then say, Krishna, why don't you just force me to love you? So last night we spoke about expanding our compassion to be for real about the treatment of all living entities, certainly beginning with Krishna's pets, the cows. We spoke about how Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam that Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmanya Hitaya. Krishna is the well-wisher of the cows and the brahmanas, but actually he likes the cows better than the brahmanas. So again, as we explained yesterday, it seems a materially tough proposition to handle. So convenient it is to get milk from the shop. Milky job, milk products. I even sold the rice shop. But so inconvenient it is to consider how to get milk from protected cows. It's like, the only example I can think of is someone who is very easily has children, but then never considers how to take care of them. Very easy to produce children, but to maintain them, well, that's another thing. I've met persons who say, well, not so much in the USA, because the USA doesn't have much of a social welfare program. But in other social welfare countries like the UK, Australia, New Zealand, I've heard people say that, why should I worry? I've heard young men say, why should I worry about how many children I fathered? I don't even know. It's not my responsibility to take care of them. I pay my taxes. That's the government's responsibility. What do you think I pay taxes for? So it's so easy to multiply, but it's difficult to actually care for the children. It requires such a concentration, such an endeavor. It's so easy to drink milk, right? But when you think about all that's involved with cow protection, then you begin to wonder, am I being responsible? Am I really facing up to the full issue? Or am I dodging reality as big words, but want to set the best possible example. The vision of the devotee is so expansive. In this purport we read in the beginning, you hear Srila Prabhupada expressing true environmentalism, true ecology, in the highest realm of the spiritual world. He's describing how Krishna's dearest devotee wanted to evoke Krishna's feelings for the condition of all others in Vrindavan Dham. Mother Yashoda, Maharaj Nanda, the cowherd boys, the gopis, and then the birds, the bees on the banks of the Yamuna, the water of the Yamuna, the trees, the forests, and all other paraphernalia associated with Krishna before he left Vrindavan for Mathura. This is real ecology. In Vrindavan, everyone and everything is a devotee of Krishna. There's simply pure consciousness. There's no matter. There's no effect of time and space. Time is there just as a prop in Krishna's pastimes. The rising and setting of the sun in Loka Vrindavan doesn't indicate time is passing. It just means the pastimes shift from one Lila to another. That's all. The sun and the moon are props. They don't indicate anything about time and space. So let us now discuss. Like a dwarf trying to capture the moon, let us discuss the compassion that Lord Chaitanya was describing while dancing at the Rath Yatra. Remember that as Lord Chaitanya's mystical dance began, and that dance is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita with the same term used to describe Lord Shiva's dance at the end of the cosmic manifestation, the Tandava Nritya, Lord Shiva's dance to destruction. That same term is used in Chaitanya Charitamrita to describe Lord Chaitanya's dance during Rath Yatra. He was emotionally devastated, on par with the devastating consequences of Lord Shiva's dance at the end of the cosmos. The eruption of ecstatic symptoms in Lord Chaitanya was devastating. So all the devotees are captivated, of course, watching. And King Prataparudra, he was in the audience. He wanted to see. In front of him, however, was Srivas Thakur, who was totally captivated by his Tandava Nritya of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so the king's assistant, Harichandana, he wanted the king to have a clear view. He wanted to get the mercy. And so Harichandana tapped Srivas Thakur repeatedly on the shoulder, trying to indicate, excuse me, sir, the king would like to see. But Srivas Thakur was so caught up in the dancing without any symptom of malice. He just absorbed in the bob of watching Lord Chaitanya dance, and he just slapped Harichandana in the face. Don't interrupt my darshan, don't interrupt my focus. The Shastra describes he was angry, but it's pure anger, like you're impeding my service, you're impeding my consciousness. So he just slapped Harichandana in the face, and Harichandana was very little. This shows you, even at the highest level of devotees, there can be, sometimes some disagreements, some variations. We're not utopians. We understand there are differences. But the question is how to make all those differences 100% work for Krishna's pleasure. And the king, Prataparudra, knew how to do that. Harichandana was getting a little angry and slapping. And Prataparudra immediately solved the situation. You are so fortunate. I could never have this great fortune. Be thankful you have been slapped by Srivas Thakur. How's that for making sense of the situation? Did you handle that? And evidently Harichandana accepted that. Pratyaparupa's conviction. And based on his bhakti conviction, he was able to resolve immediately the crisis. This shows how practical devotees are. Again, we heard about Rupa and Sanatan's practicalities, how Rupa dealt with the king, first praising him, what's in your mind? What appears in your mind is the truth about this prophet. Then later telling Lord Chaitanya, don't trust his heart. I think you should leave. Shrewd for Krishna's service. And furthermore, Rupa and Sanatan told Lord Chaitanya, it's actually not good to go to Vrindavan surrounded by millions of persons. When you go to Vrindavan, you should go alone. And Lord Chaitanya accepted their point. Now just remember, when Damodar Pandit would say something to Lord Chaitanya, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, this will give you a bad reputation, people will think this, people will think that. Lord Chaitanya would sometimes accept, but also sometimes he would point out, you shouldn't do this. I know that you're speaking out of love for me, nevertheless you should be careful not to instruct me. But with Rupa and Sanatan, Lord Chaitanya accepted what they said. Yes, you're right. Srila Prabhupada explains that externally, Lord Chaitanya wanted to present himself as a practitioner, as a sadhana, someone practicing sadhana bhakti, as a sadhaka. Okay, yes, it's not the proper method to go to Vrindavan surrounded by millions of people. Okay, thank you. He accepted their instruction. Whereas, as we said with Damodar Pandit, sometimes Lord Chaitanya would have to tell him a few things. Even though it's all based on pure love, there's variegatedness in dealings. And this is the glory of the association of devotees. The endless varieties of devotees and our learning how to swim in the ocean of that variegatedness. That takes divine empowerment. And we can beg the deities while we're here, Shri Radha Damodar, please give us more of the ability to swim and splash and dive in the ocean of devotee sadhana. So, Lord Chaitanya is dancing, and suddenly he collapses on the ground. Where is Nityananda, who would sometimes catch him? Where is Kashishvara and the other devotees who would attend Lord Chaitanya personally? He falls on the ground right in front of King Pratyaparudra, who Lord Chaitanya had vowed, he'll never see me. What's going to touch me? The Lord Chaitanya's devotees had to explain the truth to Pratyaparudra. We know you're so determined to see Lord Chaitanya, but we have to explain. He doesn't see kings in dreams, let us speak of in flesh. Pratyaparudra's determination is another subject. He wouldn't give up. Chaitanya Charitamrita is a great lesson teacher about how to determinedly stick to trying to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And as a result of his determined efforts, Lord Chaitanya found himself in ecstasy falling at the feet of Pratyaparudra, and Pratyaparudra picked him up and brought him to his feet. Externally, what was Lord Chaitanya's reaction? Oh no! The king has touched me. That was just to set the example for sadhus don't come under political influence. But internally, he was very pleased. Why? Because before the Rath Yatra started, Pratyaparudra had taken a broom and swept the street. Now, for people born in the West, they think, oh, what's the big deal sweeping the street? But in India, that's the little street sweeper. Stay away. The street is full of so many foul things. Someone who sweeps the street is materially foul. In the West, of course, you ask, well, what's the salary? Is there any union protection? What's the minimum wage? Is there a pension? Is the pension fund secure these days? Remember, we said yesterday that the mantra for the first world is Everyone knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. From the Vedic point of view, Mahaprabhu was sweeping the road before Lord Jagannath's cart was an act of utmost humility. He's demonstrating in action, I am the menial servant, and Lord Chaitanya took note of that. And therefore Lord Chaitanya purposely arranged while he's absorbed in ecstasy. Because while Lord Chaitanya is absorbed in ecstasy, sometimes he forgets himself. He's not like orchestrating his own pastimes. That's how ecstatic he becomes. He has his own Lila Shakti, his pastime energy, that manages the scene while Lord Chaitanya is just lost in the ecstasy. This is God. And so he collapses right in front of Pastimes Maharaj, and Pastimes picks him up. So then, Lord Chaitanya is hearing various verses recited by Sri Damodar, who knows how to augment his mood. Sri Damodar has the topmost emotional expertise. He knows how to sing the right shlokas to match Lord Chaitanya's transcendental emotional states. It's an extraordinary contribution. Like last time we heard, it's always Radhanath Maharaj describing his exchanges with Holiness Tirtha Maharaj, how they were talking about Krishna and matching one another in going deeper and deeper in analyzing verses. That's following in the footsteps of our Parampara. And Sri Damodar was the foremost expert in that. That's why he was the secretary to Lord Chaitanya. Not simply because, he knew how to take care of Lord Chaitanya's itineraries or traveling or whatever, but he knew how to match the bhavas of Lord Chaitanya. And so he would recite verses during the Rath Yatra, and Lord Chaitanya would just go deeper into dancing ecstasy. And Lord Chaitanya began to speak in the mood of the residents of Vrindavan, particularly the mood of Krishna's dearest devotee in Vrindavan. And this teaches us the level of the highest compassion. Speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani, Lord Chaitanya says that I'm not concerned with my own unhappiness. But when I see the face of Mother Yashoda drying up, so morose, and when I see the broken hearts of the residents of Vrindavan because you left them, I have to say something. It's not for me, but I see them. This is Lord Chaitanya in his mood of Radha Baba. He's trying to arouse the compassion of Krishna, who is Lord Jagannath. Come back to Vrindavan. Where is your compassion? Lord Chaitanya goes on to speak in the mood of Krishna's dearest devotee. For most people, the mind and the heart are separate. The mind and the heart are one. But my mind is one with Vrindavan. And I'd like you, please come, put your lotus feet back in Vrindavan. How can you go on knowing the suffering that there is in Vrindavan? At the same time, I know you're faultless. You're the perfect gentleman, refined and cultured. So how is it then that you let the residents of Vrindavan suffer so much? Is it that you want to kill them? Or maybe it is. Maybe it's that you want to see them in so much anguish and then you'll come to relieve them. Maybe that's your plan. And then Lord Chaitanya, speaking in the mood of Krishna's dearest devotee, says, don't you remember Vrindavan? Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, your friends? What about Govardhan Hill? What about the bank of the Jamuna? Don't you remember? What about Govardhan Hill? What about the place in the forest where the Rasa Lila happened? Have you forgotten all that? So this way, Lord Chaitanya is speaking like this. He's indicating to Lord Jagannath, who's Krishna, have you forgotten Vrindavan? And that's why sometimes the rock cart would stop, because Lord Chaitanya had dropped way back behind, testing Lord Jagannath, who's Krishna. Have you forgotten the residents of Vrindavan? And then Lord Jagannath would halt the cart and wait for Lord Chaitanya to catch up, indicating, I haven't forgotten Krishna's dearest. I haven't forgotten my dearest devotee in Vrindavan. I haven't forgotten the residents. This was a loving competition, as the purport described, as you know. And in that competition, the emotions of Srimati Radharani always won. So finally, when Lord Chaitanya makes that presentation of the words of the most intimate devotee in Vrindavan, Lord Chaitanya describes Krishna's response. Krishna gives an honest, very devastating response. He says, I know of their suffering. It makes me cry night and day. I can't sleep at night thinking of the suffering. You see, I had to leave. There were some demons that had to be killed. I had a few tasks to do. But I actually can't stay away. Their love for me in Vrindavan keeps me there. So then he says a very surprising thing, that I'll just say it. He says, by the mercy of Narayan, I'm able to go to Vrindavan every day. By this potency that comes from Lord Narayan. You see, because Krishna doesn't want to be known as God in Vrindavan. So he attributes anything that happens like this to Lord Narayan. He gives me the ability to appear in Vrindavan every day. I come from Dwarka every day. And I reciprocate with the residents there. And then he concludes, for sure I'll be coming back in 10 or 20 days. I'm always there anyway, in my unmanifest presence. And as we know, Krishna's dearest devotee is not satisfied with meeting Krishna outside of Vrindavan. The sounds aren't right, the scene isn't right. There's the rattling of chariots, horses, elephants, royal pageantry, Krishna dressed as a warrior. The residents of Vrindavan, especially Krishna's dearest devotee, they don't want that. Srimati Radharani says, here, outside of Vrindavan, there's not even a drop of the ocean of happiness that I experience in Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya, speaking in her mood, also said that there is a Viraha Samudra, an ocean of separation that the residents of Vrindavan have fallen into. And while falling into that ocean of separation, the Viraha Samudra, they are being devoured by the Kama Timingala, the Timingala whale. You know, Timingalas are bigger than whales. That bigger than whale creature is their ambition to serve Krishna. Kama Timingala. Their desire, their kama, is all for pleasing Krishna. The situation can only be resolved if Krishna returns. If he becomes compassionate upon the suffering of the residents of Vrindavan. And as we said, Krishna's response was, I have to confess, night and day, I'm crying because of separation from them. So we see how the topmost portion of existence, compassion manifests, and then it extends throughout the material and spiritual world as various lesser degrees of compassion, which are still glorious. Vaishnavism is so extraordinary that we see the whole range of compassion, to care for all living entities, to the compassion that Lord Chaitanya is invoking. Please, Lord Radhanath, you're Krishna, return to Vrindavan and have compassion on the residents of Vrindavan. All right, we'll stop here. Ask any questions. Yes.
I was just wondering about compassion and like the ultimate goal of our spiritual practice. To me, it seems. I was just trying to understand. We try to be servants, we're servants of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then our mission is to spread the sanctity of it, and at the same time, we have this goal of going back to the spiritual world and attaining the world of Vrindavan. So I was just wondering how does that mix together?
All right. Everyone heard. She's asking that we have this goal to be compassionate, to distribute Lord Chaitanya's mercy. At the same time, there's this goal to go back to Lok Vrindavan.
Because I was thinking it's easy to have this concept of the sattva's, to enlighten, but you choose not to go back to spiritual world so you can continue to share this, so.
You're saying the Buddhists have this concept of bodhisattvas, who were merged totally in impersonalism and then they developed the desire to be compassionate, and they came down. Even though they're merged in oneness, and there's no question of compassion, because compassion means duality, you and I. But nevertheless, okay, so, that's another point. So, she's saying, what about the, in other words, how to combine compassion with the desire or the reality of the ultimate destination? Okay, that was fair enough. So, first of all, let me assure you, we don't have secret police going around to find out if any of you have the selfish desire of going back to God. We're not going to persecute you. Ooh, you want to go back to God? Selfish. We'll report you. The festival committee is going to take your name. You should only want to selflessly serve Krishna in the material world. You want to go back to Godhead? You see, the mature development of bhakti is that you realize as long as I'm serving Krishna, I'm not in the material world. That's why Vaishnava is not concerned with liberation. Liberation is for those who are in the material world. But by serving Krishna, you're not in the material world. So as we develop in bhakti, we understand that more and more. I already have the spiritual world. I have devotional service. But there are different levels of development of love. You can even see that in relationships in this world. Things take time to develop. I was reading one survey, just to illustrate this point, which showed that in relationships between husband and wife that begin by just romance, they both struck with one another, those relationships are fast and furious for a few years, and after just 3 or 4 years, it peaks, and then they have to find out another way of relating to themselves besides, the romance. But those who meet and marry because of arranged marriages, they start out very slow, and then at the 7-year mark, they reach their peak, and then they keep developing. They don't fall back. So this is to show that in a healthy human relationship, it's not all about these extremes of boom and bust, peak and pitfalls. Real relationships are based on duty and commitment, and that brings out the real affection. But that may take some time. So the average Western person, what do they say? 7 years? Forget it. Oh, it's got to be all right now. This is the moment. The magic of the moment. This is the most fashion culture, which is covering the whole world, even India. I remember once I was speaking at Chowpatty, and it was for one of the Prana festivals. And so they asked me, okay, what's going to be the theme of your talk? So I said, okay, frustrated love. And so I walked into the temple room to give the talk, and it was full of like hundreds of young persons. That's normal. What wasn't normal was there was so much media there. TV cameramen, journalists. I was wondering what's going on. And they told me, we've come to find out about this thing, frustrated love. It's the latest import from the West. What is it? Frustrated love. Wow, it sounds intriguing. Well, unfortunately, they are finding out in India about frustrated love. Unfortunately, as the traditions break down, family structures start to break down. So my point in explaining that is to show that we should allow ourselves to mature and progress. We should be cognizant of how real love expresses itself. It's not like, an expressway to your heart. Things take time, based on duty, commitment, and that's what the path of bhakti is all about. So gradually in time, you begin to realize, I have the spiritual world, like we heard last night. We're here, this is it. That is bhakti in its full state. So we all pray that we can evolve toward that standard. All right? So again, there's no secret police here checking your aspirations if you want to go back to Godhead. Yes?
We often hear that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the breaking open the storehouse of love is the most accessible, but sometimes it seems that he's so inscrutable, it's so difficult to understand how to get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm just wondering if you can help me understand that dichotomy.
Everyone heard that? He's asking that Lord Chaitanya, he's the ocean of love of Krishna, yet sometimes he can be very inscrutable and hard to understand.
It seems that it's hard to access that mercy that is said that it's for everyone, but for me it's very hard to get.
The mercy is said to be for everyone, but it's hard to access that. Well, that's why you're doing kirtan everywhere. To show how Lord Chaitanya makes it easy. I remember Prabhupada's classic explanation of that. I saw him speaking about this in Atlanta, Georgia. I was seated right in front of Prabhupada. I was watching his face. And he just started his lecture describing how Lord Chaitanya is so merciful. He's giving Krishna to those who don't even know Krishna. In order to love someone, you have to know them. But Lord Chaitanya is giving Krishna, take him, even the persons who don't know him. And then Prabhupada just stopped the lecture for 2 minutes, his voice cracked. I saw tears shoot from his eyes, like shot from a syringe at the end of the lecture, and just went back to his room and spoke nothing about it. So those who serve Lord Chaitanya in attempting to distribute his mercy, they are also the most merciful. In this way, things increase. We're hungry for more service. How people can be led to Lord Chaitanya's mercy. He's made it easy, and the devotees want to work with Lord Chaitanya, how to provide access. This is the real spirit of outreach. Make access available. you're not interested in Krishna consciousness, tough luck. Too bad. Next one. We're always taxing our brains how people can take Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And that's how we make spiritual advancement. And that becomes a thick kind of bhava in which we're always thinking about how this should be Lord Chaitanya's mercy. One Srila Prabhupada described that everyone talks about peace, peace, peace. The fruit workers talk about peace. The Gandhis talk about peace. The mystic yogis talk about peace. But my devotees are peaceful because they're always thinking how to spread Krishna consciousness. Anything else? Yes?
Please make Krishna. You were saying Krishna, why they didn't have the same word?
He asked the gopis, right, Krishna, Kurukshetra, Sanatan. But they met him, but the same mood wasn't there. Because they're outside of Vrindavan. That's the point that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes, speaking as Krishna's dearest devotee. Here is not one drop of the ocean of happiness we experience in Vrindavan. We want you to come back. It's not right here.
One would be the same Krishna.
It's not right here. They're Brijvasis. And in fact, Krishna Chakravarti Thakur says that Krishna poses that question to them. Well, aren't we all here together? What's the problem? You see me, I see you? No, this is not the place. This is not the setting, the proper setting for our loving exchanges. Come back. And that's the whole spirit of Radhanath. Krishna's dressed differently as a prince. Different sounds are in the air, different sights. Come back to where the flowers are, where the Jamuna River is. That's where we should relate. Anything else?
This a general question on how to pray. We're talking about begging for Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And we know that Srila Prabhupada translated the mantra, please let me serve. At the same time, we have so many areas that we can or should or might approach Krishna for help. How do we pray?
So he's asking, how do we pray for Krishna's mercy? There's so many areas that we could tag for making a presentation. Well, I'll tell you something I try to do. My own humble attempt at a devotional life. When you see a devotee exhibiting devotional qualities, you immediately pray to Krishna. I'd like to be like that. And the super soul in your heart hears, oh, that's what you want. And you'll be surprised gradually. It's always gradually. You know, we're part of an instant culture, you know, instant coffee, instant pure devotee, instant everything. Can't wait. Just like I was giving an example about marriage. 7 years before you start to peak. That's our consciousness. But you'll find, shockingly, at any time, Krishna indeed has heard He's heard your prayer. That's the glory of festivals like this. So many devotees, so many glorious devotees. And you can just see examples of glorious devotion everywhere. And so then you, Krishna, I want to be like that. And the super soul in your heart enjoys that and helps. Gradually you'll see all that happen. Don't think that the Lord in the heart is not aware of your desires. The only way any of your desires, even your material desires, can be fulfilled is by the super soul in the heart granting you facility. Our beloved material desires, we can't even remember them from our previous life. It's so dear to us. My material desire. I got material desire. You got material desire. All God's children have material desire. We can't remember, but the super soul in the heart reminds you. In your previous life, this is what you wanted. I don't advise it, but you wanted it. What can I do? I heard once Swami explaining that the super soul is vigorously telling us, don't do it, don't do it. I know you want this, but don't do it. And we just shut it out. Thanks for reminding me what I want. I'm going for it. Don't you think that same super soul will help you to be a better devotee? Especially when you've been in the association of devotees, which is one of the essential practices of bhakti. By your being in this association, you notice, look at these selfless devotees. Who's behind the scene in the kitchen now? Who's been doing the deity work? Who's organized all this? How are these devotees sacrificing? What can I do to aid this sacrifice? We get to wonder, who's behind the scenes here at Gita Nagari? Who's doing all this work? Who's in charge of the kitchen? Who's allowing themselves to be led by the person in charge of the kitchen? You can be in charge of something, but you don't have anyone who's to execute. What's the use of being in charge? So much sacrifice is all around. Who's taking care of the cows? I just realized, look at the cows. The milk doesn't come from the store. Amazing. Who's in charge of that? So all these realizations come to you, and then you pray to the Lord in the heart. Please, I want to be like that as soon as possible. I'm willing to take as long as it takes, but I wish it was quick, but if not in this lifetime, please, the next lifetime, I'll keep trying. This is what I want to be. You think Krishna's not swayed by such a presentation? Yes. How do you keep mental concoctions away from pure bhakti, and how do you not allow yourself to fool yourself? Very good question. I've been studying the verse Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita that you steady the mind with your intelligence. Shastric intelligence actually steadies the mind. Because the mind is shooting this way and that way, accepting, rejecting, grasping at this, grasping at that, becoming absorbed in plans for expanding your power niche in the material world. I just want a little bit, not much. Oh, I just want to be a small piece, not a big piece. The big thieves are bad, but the small thieves, they're ethical and modest. Steady the mind with deliberative intelligence. That's the value of studying Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. It's not just your mind jumping here and there. The intelligence, the spiritual intelligence predominates and steadies it. It works. That's Krishna's instruction.
Sometimes also we try to do the spiritual like idea of intelligence for ourselves too,
Don't understand.
like you said, by the spiritual intelligence, like from a sastric intelligence, we can cover up that. But sometimes we use this scriptural or sastric intelligence to satisfy our own desires.
He says sometimes we use the Shastric intelligence to satisfy our own desires. That's why we need Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. I remember as a young devotee in the early 70s, there was one mantra that would cover whatever you wanted to get away with in bhakti. It is not a disadvantage or a negative aspect to accept guidance. It's the glory of bhakti. All right. Last question.
Raj, could you explain the difference between spiritual humility and material humility?
Let's take it to the platform of emotion in general. Let's talk about the difference between material emotion and spiritual emotion. Material emotion does not lead to an increase in devotional service, whereas spiritual emotion does. Then we'll look at the specific emotion of humility. Material humility, material lamentation. Oh, I'm so fallen, I'm so useless. Whoa, I can't do anything, that's why I'm not doing anything. I can't get up in the morning, I can't do any service, I can't give any donations, I'm just useless, you know. You start singing the blues. And there's no positive outcome, materially or spiritually. But spiritual humility means, like we read in Sanatan, we are the most fallen. But at the same time, they want service. And Lord Chaitanya gives them service. Excavate the holy places in Vrindavan. Write bhakti books. Guide the Vaishnavas in proper behavior. So, as we talked about in describing dainya, real humility, it's about your thinking genuinely that you are useless, but all the other devotees see you've got so many abilities. It's hard to understand it on a material platform. So spiritual humility always leads to more devotional service. It's not like we're just going around making pranams and speaking softly and that's it. A humble attitude in bhakti leads to more devotional service and leads to more expertise in devotional service. It's not that, well, I'm so humble that I've been given a certain service and I'm not going to try to increase my abilities in order to do that service because I'm used to it. You know, I'm humble. I'm supposed to do bookkeeping for the temple, but as you all know, I'm useless. So why should I learn bookkeeping, you know? That would make me arrogant. Never mind that the books for the temple are in bad shape, you know. I mean, actually that shows how humble I am. I'm a cook. I burn so many preparations. That shows you humility. If I improve my ability, I'll be getting puffed up. So better just to be inept. And that way I attract more mercy. How many of you want that kind of relationship? I often try to frame things in relationships of this world so we don't try to make bhakti so far beyond our comprehension. It's just way out there, therefore it doesn't have any application. Look at what you want in your own life. How many men or women would want to marry someone like that? You know, I just can't get to work because, you know, I'm falling and useless. I can't, you know, or if you're a traditional housewife, I can't clean the house, I can't cook because, you know, I'm just the most fallen. Who wants a relationship like that? We want to get back to Krishna? Now, as I heard one person describe the potential partner they're looking for, a person said, yeah, I want someone who's spiritual, who, you know, reads the Bhagavatam, who's also savvy, who has a little bit of ambition to be someone in the material world. I said, I know. You want that he chants perfect rounds, reads Bhagavatam 2 hours a day, works a full-time job, and talks to you 4 hours a day. So everyone actually wants expertise in their own service. Serve me with expertise. I want to see that they're really into it. Krishna is the Supreme Person. So, our humility means that for Krishna's pleasure we want to increase our abilities. Not to enhance our egos, but to enhance Krishna's service. Sometimes devotees may show appreciation, sometimes they may not, but Krishna is always watching. So I thank you all for attending this wonderful festival.
Gracing us with your association, being here in Nagari. Especially the Mataji was saying earlier, Maharaj has this incredible magical ability to take these ethereal, spiritual, hard to grasp, theoretical, spiritual concepts and incorporate them in their day-to-day lives. And it's really extraordinary. Thank you so much, Raj. Few quick announcements. 10 a.m. March was scheduled to arrive at 10 a.m. There's a slight schedule change. 10 a.m. Rupa Kishore Prabhu is going to be presenting a slideshow presentation on the impact of the journey home in North America, around the world. And my understanding is that March is one of the strongest Swami